You know, the doctors always tell you don't drink when you're pregnant, but what they don't tell you is why. Oh.
Is Dad home?
Yeah, he's upstairs. Sorry. I'm trying to think how I would describe Jacob. He's a sweet kid when he wants to be, and then he has that other side of him. You know, it's an everyday, constant battle with him, trying to get him to do anything, really. I actually knew something was wrong with Jacob before he was even born. He came about 6 weeks early, and the doctors called it failure to thrive. He would just cry. He was real stiff all the time. Just, you couldn't console him. And as he got older, he had a very flat effect. There was no personality in him. When he was about 4 and he started preschool, then started the aggression.
We were just going south as a family, not just Jacob going south. You know, it was just so hard and so rough, and you're isolated from friends, from family, from neighbors, because no one wants to be around him. No one wants to deal with him. And
no, we never felt like anybody really knew what was going on with him.
We just knew whatever they were saying was wrong with him was wrong.
The term FASD I had never heard of that before. Before we moved to Alaska, and even while in Alaska, the first time that I heard of it was when I had the opportunity to go to an FASD 101 training. Sitting in the classroom and watching the videos and learning about what FASD is and what it does to your brain. And I remember just sitting there and holding back the tears and just kind of listening and letting it all in. And then when that class got over, I just lost it. And it was then that I realized that this could be what's wrong with Jacob.
When Heidi presented that back to me, when she went to that class and said, I think this is Jacob, it clicked. It was just, there was no argument. There was no anything. That was just, well, we've been telling doctors all along that you drank. We know you did. You know, we tried to be responsible with, you know, telling that account, not trying to hide anything. And everybody seemed to just blow it off because they didn't have some understanding of that was a huge issue. And I don't get how the medical profession doesn't know that part, or know to at least go down that road and read another book.
No, this is just, no!
Before I got pregnant with Jacob, my husband and I got divorced, and I had 4 other children, and literally had nothing to my name. And I just started partying. I just started going out with my friends and going to the bars, and that's when I would binge drink. I'd have 4 and 5 drinks an hour, and that would go on for a few hours, and then I would be done. He was somebody that I just took home from the bar. So we don't know him. I know his name, and that's about it. You know, it was never planned. I didn't even date him. So it just, comes to show you that's what happens when you're drunk and you're in a state of mind where you don't care. And so I had stopped drinking for a while, and then it was my girlfriend that was saying, let's go on this cruise and just have fun and party. And if anybody knows, when you go on a cruise, the first thing they do is hand you a drink. Well, I was about 10 weeks, actually, at the time I went on the cruise. And I drank the entire time. I mean, it was from the morning, I'd have a few, and then I'd have some at night. And we just started over. It was a 3-day cruise. So for 3 days, that's what I did. And it was about 2 weeks after my cruise is when I found out that I was pregnant. I mean, I always knew, you don't drink when you're pregnant. And so obviously once I found out I was pregnant, I no longer picked up a drink. I didn't smoke. I didn't do any of that. But the damage was already done. The damage had been done. I wanted to know. We wanted to know what was wrong with him. If it was that, we would deal with it. But at the same time, I didn't want to know. I didn't want to know that I was the one that caused his issues. I was the one, because of my choices, caused my son to have the brain damage that he had.
That's so hard! No, it's not. He's not doing anything. Shut up!
Jake, we're not laughing at
Yes,
you,
you
we're laughing
are.
at Ray.
Go upstairs right now.
Mom, there's no reason. We're not
Go
even laughing
upstairs.
at him. We're laughing at
You know, I just remember, you know, a lot of crying and a lot of tears. And sorry, it's hard to talk about.
It really does eat her up pretty good, though, that, you know, she did this, but she didn't know. You know, she didn't know she was pregnant. And really, at the time, she knew about as well as the doctors here know that, you know, she had no idea that the alcohol would have that much of an effect, or that long lasting of an effect on an infant.
I just said, it is what it is. It'll be okay no matter what. And he will finally get the help and the support that he needs. And just to know that something's wrong with him and he's not just a bad kid, you know, was pretty big.
You know, we wouldn't know what medications he's supposed to be on. We wouldn't know what medications he shouldn't be on. We wouldn't know what doctors to trust. We wouldn't know what to do with any of that. There's no way around that if we don't have that diagnosis, because we don't know how to treat him. Not only did the diagnosis give us what's going on with him, but having that diagnosis allowed us to get education for us.
We definitely knew that Utah is not as educated on FASD as Alaska is. I wish that people would get more educated on it. I think it's very, very important. There are so many children out there who probably have FASD and just don't know what's wrong with them.
If you drink it all and you're sexually active, you're a candidate. Your child's a candidate. That's all there is to it. You know, when it comes to Heidi and what she gets done and what she does, you know, it's astronomical. That's why it irritates her so bad when people are judgmental, when they jump to conclusions.
It actually is good for me as well to tell my story to the people who actually care, that I know will not judge and that do not, you know, put me down for mistakes that were made as, you know, as I went through a really hard time. I've had a lot of time, you know, to process. And the hardest thing is just knowing that it won't ever go away. It's not, you know, something that can be fixed. It's brain damage. And so for me, emotionally, obviously, it's still really hard. And the way that I deal with it is just making sure that he lives the best life that he possibly could live. You know, yes, he's different, but he is loved.